Welcome to episode 5 of the Head in the Clouds video series. I am Ken Hartman, a SANS certified instructor and content creator for the SANS Cloud Security Curriculum. Today's episode is titled Tips for Success with Command Line Interfaces Using Bash. The purpose of Head in the Clouds is to teach fundamental cloud skills and security knowledge that will help others thrive in the cloud. The content ideas come from my personal observation of skills that I see some students lacking when they show up to a SANS Cloud Security course. Other ideas are passed on from fellow instructors. Today's topic is based on a conversation with SANS principal instructor Eric Johnson during a break while we were co-teaching SEC 510 at SANS Security West. The full title of SEC 510 is Public Cloud Security, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. And throughout the entire class, various command line interface commands are run from the Linux Bash terminal. And this is the case with most of the other classes in the SANS Cloud Security curriculum as well. First off, what is the big deal with command line interfaces? Command line interfaces allow one to manipulate the cloud service from a terminal. This is a powerful technique because it is succinct and efficient. It's also easier to copy and paste a single command from a playbook than it is to say, well, go to your web console, click on the X menu and select the Y item, and then click on the Z object, and so on. Multiple command line interface commands can be combined to make a script. And this is where knowledge of Bash will be a payoff as well. And since this is a brief tutorial on navigating within Bash, let's jump into it. The full name of Bash is the Born Again shell. It is the most popular, but not the only shell that can be used with the Linux operating system. It's been around since 1989 and is still actively maintained. One of the first tricks that a user will figure out is that they can use the up arrow to revisit the last command that they ran. This is a handy trick, and I use it all the time. However, I see new students use the up arrow dozens of times to access a command that they ran much earlier in their session. This is rather painful, so our first few tricks involve how to access one's command history. To view the commands that have been run recently, just type history, and you will see a numbered list with the highest number being the last command. To execute any of the listed commands, simply type an exclamation point and then the number that corresponds to the command that you want to run. So for example, if I want to rerun the who am I command, I just type bang number 5. This is a great time saver and very good to know. I can also pipe one command into another. In fact, we can pipe the output of the history command into grep and use that to filter our results. For example, if we use the cat command to look at the contents of a text file recently, but if we forgot the path, we could see what it is using the history piped to grep cat to find it. Grep is powerful, and we will explore it in much more detail in the next edition of Head in the Clouds, along with some other powerful commands for slicing and dicing log files. Perhaps when you ran the history command just now, you wondered where it pulled its data from. If so, great. It's good to be curious. If you look in your home directory, you will see a file called .bash_history. To view the file listing, type ls space hyphen la space tilde /bash_history. Remember that ls is the command to list the directory contents and that you can view the manual page of any command by typing man in front of the command. For example, man ls shows the following. In fact, some of the best advice that's given to new users of Linux is to RTFM, read the find manual. By looking at the man page for ls, we can see that the L option is to direct the ls command to display the file listing in the long format. We can also use the A option to direct the ls command to output all files that match the file specification, including hidden files. Note, looking at the output of the ls command, we see that the permissions on the .bash_history file are read and write by the owner. So this file should not be regarded as a robust audit log. And if you're not familiar with Linux permissions, I will refer you to the link displayed on screen. Incidentally, .bash history is a hidden file, and we can tell this because any file that name starts with a period is a hidden file. By default, the .bash history file for any user is in their home directory. So when we ran ls-la ~.bash history, we told the ls command to look for the bash history file in our home directory. And this is because the tilde character is an alias for the home environment variable. We will talk about variables next, but before we move on, let's take a look at the contents of our bash history file. Let's run cat ~.bash_history. Bash has two types of variables, local variables and environment variables. Local variables can be set inside a script or an interactive shell session. But when the script has completed or the shell session has terminated, the variables are released from memory. On the other hand, environment variables are maintained in memory until the system is rebooted so that other scripts, programs, or other shell sessions can access them. Also, note that many of the environment variables are set by startup scripts that run at boot time. To set a variable, we use an equal sign. For example, to set the value of 488 to a local variable called sans, we could use sans equals 488. We can view the contents of the variable using the echo command. To learn more about the echo command, you can use man echo to view its manual page. All these commands have a multitude of options that make them quite versatile and worth learning. Note that when we use the variable, we prepend a $sign to access the contents of the variable. Without the $sign, the word sans is treated as a string. Note that if I open up a new terminal session, the value of the sans variable has not been set. Earlier in this edition, I mentioned that the tilde character was a shorthand representation for the home environment variable. Let's prove that. Since we're talking about environment variables, you may be wondering what other environment variables have been set on your system. Well, fortunately, Linux has a command for that as well. Use the man command to learn more about the env command. Great. Now let's check out our environment variables. Notice the home, pwd, user, and path variables. Well, these are all used by the operating system to keep track of specifics about the user's environment. Many command line interfaces will use environment variables to set credentials that the CLI will use to authenticate to the cloud service. To set an environment variable, simply add the export command in front of the assignment statement. For example, with AWS, I can set two environment variables with a valid access key ID and secret as shown. And this will allow me to run various AWS CLI commands as allowed by the permissions associated with the identity tied to the AWS access key. Check out the link on screen for a list of the environment variables supported by the AWS CLI. Sometimes it may be necessary to change or remove an environment variable. To change a variable, just set the same variable to a different value. Use the unset command to remove it. Watch this. When helping SANS students, I often see them hitting the right arrow many times to get to the end of the command line, or hitting the left arrow multiple times to get to the beginning. There is an easier way. Use Control A to jump to the beginning of the line and hit Control E to jump to the end of the line. I use the following memory trick. The letter A is at the beginning of the alphabet and E is for end. Many folks know that you can use Control C to cancel a program that is running from the command line. But you can also do this if you mess up typing a command. Just hit Control C to cancel it rather than backspacing to the beginning of the line. When you do so, you will be returned to an empty prompt. There are many more Bash terminal shortcuts, so as we close, I will leave you with a good reference that lists several. Of course, to remember them, you have to use them, so practice them one at a time until it becomes second nature. Over time, you will thank yourself for becoming more efficient. Well, that's it. Now you know some tips and tricks that will help you navigate the Bash shell and how to work with environment variables. If you appreciate this video and want to see more like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I also want to mention that we have the SANS CloudSec Next Summit coming up quickly. It runs next week. That is June 3rd and 4th. Visit sans.org/CloudSecNextSummit for details and to register. It's not too late, and best of all, the summit is free. We are anticipating upwards of 10,000 attendees. I will be a chair of the solutions track. We always have lots of fun at these summits, and they are packed with great information. Stay tuned for another installment of Head in the Clouds as announcements of new episodes are made on the SANS Cloud Security Twitter feed. Meanwhile, be sure to check out other great videos on the SANS Cloud Security YouTube channel. Take care.